In this video we'll show you how to create a levitation image. This is great fun and not nearly as complicated as you may think. You simply need two shots, one with the model, one without. Here's how it's done. A tripod is vital for this technique. It will keep the camera stable and allow you to capture the scene twice with both shots in perfect registration. Set your camera to manual mode so that exposure stays consistent throughout. Likewise, after focusing on your subject, set your lens to manual focus. To light the scene here, we've used one softbox flash head from a home studio kit, but however you choose to light your scene, it's important that lighting doesn't change between shots. Find a suitable box ladder or stool for your subject to perch on. Make sure it's stable, and of course, be mindful of the person's safety. Once they're in place, take a few shots while experimenting with different poses and positions. Watch out for parts of the body that are touching the stool in particular, as you don't want clothes or body parts being pressed too flat against it. When you think you've nailed the pose, ask your subject to move out of the scene. Get rid of the stool and then take another shot of the empty scene. Now you're ready to combine the images in Photoshop. Here we are in Adobe Bridge and you can see I have my shot of the empty scene and also a shot with the model on the stool. And I've also taken a third shot, and I'm going to use this to make the light float as well as the model and come up with something that looks like this. So I'm going to start by opening up my 3 before files into Adobe Camera Raw. I'm just going to hold Control, that's Command on a Mac, Control on a PC. I'm just going to hold that and click on all 3 files to highlight them here in Adobe Bridge. Then right click and choose Open in Camera Raw. And I'm just going to use Camera Raw to make a few tonal tweaks. So I want these tweaks to apply to all 3 images at once. So I'm going to click Select All at the top left of the screen here. Now any changes I make will be applied across the board. I'm going to go to the temperature slider first and just drag that to the left slightly to cool the image down to about here, about 5,600, somewhere around there. Then I'm going to add a touch of contrast, bring that up to about plus 23. We'll also just boost the highlights, and this will help to blow out those windows so we're losing detail there and give it a more dreamy feel. So I think we'll push that to around about 40, 38, somewhere around there. We'll also just up the shadows slightly to bring out a bit of detail in the shadow areas. And I think we'll just reduce clarity slightly, and this will help to give the image a bit more of a dreamy feel. We'll bring that to -8. And also just up vibrance, and this will increase the saturation of the less saturated colours in the image. We'll bring that to about +10. And I'm happy with that, so I'm going to click Done. And that will apply those changes, then bring me back into Adobe Bridge. Now I can use a feature in Bridge to open these 3 files as a layered document. So let's go to Tools, Photoshop, and Load Files into Photoshop Layers. That will open Photoshop and load the 3 files as a layered document. And if I go to Window Layers to bring up my Layers panel, you can see I now have the 3 images all on different layers. Now we want our empty image to be at the bottom of our layer stack, so I'm going to drag that down below the other 2 layers, and then we want this image to be in the middle and the light stand image to be on top. I'm just going to turn off the light stand image for the moment, and let's just drag our layers panel over this side. Now I need to combine these 2 layers, and I can do this using a layer mask. So I'm going to click the Add Layer Mask icon here at the bottom of the layers panel, and then I'm going to grab the brush tool, choose black as my foreground colour, and I'm going to choose a soft edged circular brush tip like that one there. And then if I paint with black while this layer mask here is active, I can hide the stool and reveal the empty chair underneath. So I'm just going to up my brush tip size using the bracket keys on my keyboard. The right square bracket key will make my brush tip larger, and the left square bracket key will make it smaller. So I'm going to start off with quite a large brush tip and then just paint quite roughly over the area to begin with, like this. And you can see how that's working. And once I've done a fairly rough job, I can zoom in a little closer to tidy it up. So I'm just going to zoom in using the keyboard shortcut Command and Control and plus to zoom in. Command and Control and minus will move me out. So let's just zoom in a little closer. And then if I flip my foreground colour to white, I can paint to reveal parts of this layer. So I can just do that to tidy up these areas here where I've gone over the girl. So let's choose a smaller brush tip this time, and then we can just paint over this area here to reveal the girl and tidy up. just like this. And if we go over any areas of the stool, we can always flip to black and then paint to hide them again. So I'm going to flip to black by hitting X, and then I can paint to hide parts of the layer just around here to tidy up. And I've got a part of the dress here where it'd be quite nice to have a little bit of translucency around this area. So I'm going to bring the opacity down on my brush and then paint with black over this area here. And that will begin to reveal some of the background, just like that. And that helps to blend in those two layers. Just finish off around this area here. And also we've lost a bit of the thumb here, so I'll bring that back by painting with white. And the arm here, I think we're nearly there. Let's bring that opacity back up to 100%. And I'm happy with how that's looking. Now I'm going to use another layer mask to make my light stand float over here. So in fact, let's just move my layers panel across to the other side of the screen, and we'll zoom out slightly. And let's reveal that floating stand. So I'm going to highlight this top layer, and rather than add an empty white layer mask, I'm going to add a full black layer mask this time. I can do that by holding Alt and clicking the Add Layer Mask icon. You can see that gives me a full mask, and that means everything on that layer is hidden. Now I can paint with white on this layer mask to reveal the light. So I'm going to grab the brush tool with white as my foreground colour again, and then I can paint over here. You can see how this will reveal parts of that layer. So we'll just reveal the light like this. I'm not too worried about the hand at the moment because we can always clone that out in a second. Just finish off over here. And I'm happy with that. Now I can clone out the hand by adding a new empty layer, just by clicking the Create New Layer icon here at the bottom of the Layers panel to give me a new empty layer. Let's just double click the layer name there, and we'll call this cloning. And then I'll grab the clone tool from the tools panel over here. Let's make sure mode is set to normal, opacity at 100%. And we also need to make sure sample all layers is selected up here. And let's just zoom into that hand over there. And I can hold Alt to sample the wall here, and then just paint over the hand to clone in the wall. And obviously I'm being quite rough about this, you can be a bit more precise with your cloning. Let's just do this section over here. When it comes to removing the hand here, I'm just going to sample this light edge here and then just be a bit more precise and line up those edges there with my clone tool preview. You can see how that works. Let's do the same with the thumb here. And then just use a smaller brush to tidy up. There we go, I'm happy with how that's looking. If we just zoom out slightly. And there we have our floating model and light stand. Next I'm going to add a couple of shadows, and I'm going to do this by holding Alt and clicking the Create New Layer icon here at the bottom of the Layers panel to give me my new layer options here. We'll give the layer a name, we'll call it Shadows, and we'll go to the mode options here and choose Overlay, and then I'm going to check this box that says Fill with Overlay Neutral Colour and click OK. Now I can use the Burn tool to burn in parts of this layer, and it will affect all of the layers underneath. So I have my range set to midtones, exposure about 16% with the burn tool. I'm just going to burn in this area here to make it look like the girl is casting a bit of a shadow over the chair. And I could also perhaps just burn in the shadow underneath the light stand slightly. If I toggle that layer on or off, you can see how that's working. Perhaps we could just lower the layer opacity slightly to make it a bit more subtle, and I think that's working well. And I think we're nearly there. I'm going to finish off by adding a toning effect just to make the colours a bit more punchy. I'm going to use a colour lookup adjustment layer. So I'm going to click the Create Adjustment Layer icon here at the bottom of the Layers panel and choose colour lookup. You can obviously use any different adjustment layers you like to create a toning effect. I'm going to go to this top drop down here and choose the film stock 50 setting, and you can see how that's working. It's obviously looking a bit too strong at the moment, so I can just lower the layer opacity there to tone the effect down, and I'm happy with that. And that's my finished levitation image. Let's just take a quick look back through our layers. You can see here this was our empty scene, and we added our girl, then masked out the stool. We then made our light stand float, and then we cloned out the hand. We then added a couple of shadows, and finally added an adjustment layer to give the image an overall tone. And that's it. Thanks very much for watching.